Welcome back, guys. So now let's look at all the smaller items that we want to pack in our backpack. Basically, you have to think about what you're going to use on a day-to-day basis, right? So you want to figure out where in my backpack is there easy accessibility. Now, usually you'll have that in the bottom the compartment because you have usually a small zipper at the very bottom of your backpack, where you will be able to gain access just with a quick zip off, and that's a great way to store clothing and other day-to-day essentials that you need. Now, my specific backpack also have an extra zipper for the big main compartment, which makes it possible for me to access the let's say the big and deep and hidden bottom space of the big backpack area. So because of that, I actually use the main compartment for my day-to-day items. So I'll start with my clothing, and I'll put them here in the deep end of the backpack in the bottom, and then I'll just be able to zip it on and zip it off whenever I want to gain access to some clothing, right? It'll be super easy and convenient. You lay it on the back in the hostel floor, and yeah, easy access every day. And also, if you have some valuables, now is also a good time to store them away in your big backpack. My backpack specifically actually has like a small, like A4 paper-sized room that follows along the back. So if you have some big papers that you want to keep nice and secure, you probably look after a similar spot in your own backpack. So now we put in the clothing. You should now think of putting in the rest of the bigger items. And by the way, if you want to know the exact items and the purpose and the reasons from choosing them, then check out our other video that we also made about how what to bring in your backpack, right? And you can check that out in the description below as well. But you want to pack your backpack with the big items now. So you use the big compartment, air mattress, water bag, which you would actually want to put under your clothing here. And then for smaller loose objects that can't take as much pressure, you want to put them on the very top, right? So there we go. And this is what would be in the main compartment. Alright guys, now let's look into what to put in the lower compartment of your backpack. So as I mentioned just briefly earlier, if you don't have that fancy zipper in the main compartment, you might actually option to use this lower end for your day-to-day items, for your clothing. But for this specific backpack, it's probably more functional as the original purpose, which would be for your dirty clothing, your shoes, and other winter clothing items. So what we'll do here is probably figure out what are we going to use the least. Let's say we're in the Andes right now, so we're going to put the flip-flops at the very bottom. And of course, that's the way you want to think as well with the big, if you only have one big main compartment in your backpack, obviously store away the items that you know you're not going to use for a while in the very bottom, and then the items that you're going to use on a day-to-day basis, you want them on the top, right? So kind of think that as well. Another way of thinking is also just when you pack it, make sure to balance it out just a little bit. So now when I have a big tent in one area, I'll probably want to put some more weight on the left side of the backpack, just so it's convenient and nice to walk with. You very quickly notice though, so it's not like you have to pack the perfect backpack the first time before you take off, because you'll figure it out from day to day how it's mostly suiting your back and how to pack it most properly. So this is just like to give you a general idea on how you can use the different compartments. So my shoes, I'm probably going to use those quite often. So they go in next, almost at the very end. So now what we have here is we have some gloves, we have a hat, And if I'm in the Andes, it can get chilly, especially in the mountains. And let's say I'm hiking the mountains with all this equipment, it would make great sense. Then I probably want these to be able to reach like almost day-to-day basis. And yeah, a laundry bag, right, for your dirty laundries. You don't necessarily want to put this bag in the main compartment with all your nice clothing. So you just want to store this away in the lower compartment as well. And just a last little tip, finishing off with this lower compartment, is that one option is to have a big rain cover to cover the whole backpack, which can work great. If you do hike a lot in the mountains with your backpack, it tends to fly off as the wind gets strong. So another little neat trick is simply, instead of covering your whole backpack with one big plastic sheet that you might have to pay for the specific brand and price, another way could just be to have like just common plastic bags and just put them, put your clothing and electronics inside these just casual plastic bags, and that way when it rains, your backpack gets wet, but all of those essential clothing items, they stay nice and dry. And that's a small tip that will cost you way less than necessarily buying a proper rain cover for your backpack. So that was the lower compartment there. Now let's have a look at the rest of the compartments as well. So now we have the last compartments. We have some of the smaller pockets of our backpack left. And let's take care of our electronics now. So you probably have like a power bank, some USB cables, maybe even a big extension cord for the hostel, so you don't have to fight over the one plug, and maybe a converter, flashlight, etc. So all of these items, it's quite important to keep dry, right? So as you just mentioned earlier, put them in plastic bags could be a great option, and even maybe buying a dry bag so it actually stays super dry. That's quite a good tip. So I'll just use my side pockets. For easy accessibilities, as I imagine, I'm gonna need my electronics quite often. So I don't want those to be in the bottom of my backpack. Okay, another very important item to have in your backpack at all times is a first aid kit, right? And you don't want this to be in the bottom of your backpack neither. So again, using one of these smaller compartments would work super great. Also, as you're wrong, it's great to have pretty much for all purposes. You're sitting at a hostel, chilling, you want some shade, you are in a bus transporting yourself from one city to another, you want a bit of cover up, and so on, for head protection against the sun. So I'm probably going to use this almost daily. That's just for me personally. So I'm going to use this space here for my first aid kit and for my Chiron. Right, so that's nice and tight. You might ask, so what do you have left now? You filled in all the pockets, and we pretty much did, except for two. So we're gonna now look into the actual very top of the backpack, where we finish it off with the last clippers to close and seal it off nice and properly. And before we close our backpack though, we want to be able to keep some valuables maybe protected inside of this backpack. Now, I have my passport, international driver's license, and health security or vaccine certificate. I have them on me right now. And actually, in most cases, to be honest, you'd want to have them on you, especially in transportation. If you leave your big backpack down in the back room of the bus or below the bus, so to say, you want to keep them on you, right? So in your pocket, maybe you have a zip pocket, or maybe in a smaller day pack. You just keep that nice and tight. But maybe at some point you reach your hostel or destination, you check into your room, and you want to go out. Then you probably want to leave them maybe in the room, in the safety box, instead of taking them out with you. And at least for me, it worked quite well with maybe even a secret pocket. Usually you'll also find those in your backpack. For obvious reason, you can't tell them, but this inner side of the backpack works pretty great for these documents as well. So now they're actually in the head on the inner side, and I'll zip. There we go. And now we can basically secure our backpack. And as you will see, we now have one last space area to be filled. And what goes in the very top? Well, for me, some items that I find also handy to have first hand. Just be earplugs, some cover for your eyes, like eye shade. Also, maybe you want some napkins. Alright, you want some hand sanitizer, napkins, playing cards, always good to have at hostels, bus stops, etc. And maybe you want some snacks as well. Maybe some peanuts, whatever snack you prefer. Always good to have snacks, guys. And also especially within easy reach. So now, we actually packed the last of the items, and we are now ready for our bus transfer. Or we're now ready to check out of the hostel and get going on our next adventure. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and have a beautiful day out there.